Okay, we are live. Alrighty, hi everyone. It's kind of been a while since we last went live. We last went live with Rome. That was back in the new year with Anastasia and Kynan. That was a good time. But yeah, now we're kind of just hitting the ground running. New Year's is over. Christmas is over. It's January now, the 21st, and I'm very excited to say that there's momentum being built again. And so we just kind of want to get right into it. And so today, to start things off, first, I've invited a great friend of ours, somebody who had us on when we first had the confrontation with AOC, and that is our friend Kit over at Hard Lens Media.
Cheers and salutations.
Yes. Kit is one of my favorite people. He's awesome. And today we also have a candidate running for U.S. Senate. Her name is Diane Sare. She's also a great friend of mine who she can't stay on too long. But basically, I've assembled this wonderful panel of people because we all have one common goal, which is we're trying to save the world. And we don't want mankind to end. And Kit has been doing great stuff. I know Kit interviewed 4 people who are speaking at this Rage Against the War Machine event.
Now it's going to be 5, and we got 1 more in the books now. So it's going to be 6 by next week.
All right. Awesome. Diane is a speaker at the Rage Against the War Machine event. So we'll be down in D.C. also. But just to get us started and get the discussion going, I want to set the stage, first of all, for our viewers. We have this intervention that's just dropping in today. This happened today in the Bronx, here in New York City. Diane Sare led a chorus, and when Diane isn't running for Senate, or actually when she is running for Senate, she's also a choral director. And so I want to play this intervention that we just did today, or that was done today. I wasn't there, but Kynan was there and others were there. So we're going to play that for the stream now.
Fantastic. Let's check it out. Now you're telling. Now AOC is telling people you're not being rude, Jose. You're being rude. Everybody here, you're being rude. How dare all of you use your First Amendment right to call out the Democratic neoliberal establishment? How dare you?
Actually, that wasn't rude at all, Diane. That was actually quite beautiful, I might say. Can you tell us what you were singing, first of all?
Well, the words were Dona nobis pacem. I'm sorry the camera didn't cover the signs. Give us peace. And I thought we needed to do something different because we've called her out. You and Kynan did a brilliant job. That first intervention on the threat of nuclear war. Then we had some copycat interveners who just came and screamed and yelled. And that would sort of be expected. And I thought we should do something that was different, that perhaps would provoke people to think that mankind is beautiful and we should not annihilate ourselves. And the signs that people were carrying said, no more weapons to Ukraine, no war with China and Russia, negotiation, not annihilation. Nuclear war will do that. And diplomacy takes guts. Those were the signs that people were carrying. And I think it had the effect. I think it also brought to mind, this is Co-op City in the Bronx. So for people who were older, many of the African Americans in the crowd, the civil rights movement, which is something people really should be thinking about right now. Different quality. We have to elevate this. We're about to extinguish ourselves as a species, and we're going to have to find some quality of emotion that's on a higher level.
What I find interesting is, I think we might, and I want to be careful with these words because anyone in the audience and even you guys here in the panel can correct me, but I think we might be seeing the beginning or reconstruction again of the anti-war movement. And the reason why it needs to come back is because, well, some would say that it died when Biden got into office, but I'd make the argument that as soon as Barack Obama got into office, that's when it finally became dead because everyone went to sleep because we had the 8 years of George Bush Jr. and Dick Cheney ruling over us. And then in comes Barack Obama with the promise of hope and change. Everyone comes to arms when Trump, the orange boogeyman, gets into power. But even then, that anti-war movement was lackluster and mediocre at best. And then everyone goes back to sleep again. And now here we are wasting billions of our treasury on a war that should not be happening at all. Because in my personal opinion, as it continues to escalate, we could be looking at the extinction of the human species, as you said very eloquently, Diane, and as you've brought it as well, Jose, and the rest of your colleagues as well. But we need to see it return. And that's why I'm in full support of this Rage Against the War Machine that we're seeing on February 19th. And it's made up of a great coalition of different groups and political parties. And we have to put a stop to this and call for diplomacy, because if not, well, the survivors will envy the dead if things get out of hand. And that's being polite in regards to addressing that situation.
That's totally right. Can I say something else?
Go ahead. Yeah, no, we're very loose here. So.
Good. No, look, this is such a horror. I mean, war is horrible. And that's, when you think about what it must be like in the trenches, and a few weeks ago, we got that report from, I think it was from Zaluzhny, who was in his car and he was describing the Ukrainian troops in water that was knee deep, 36 degrees, so just barely above freezing, sick with pneumonia. Fighting. And why? This is not their war. This is a war for the Great Reset, the bailout of this financial system. And you get a sense of the deep evil, I would say, to be willing to cause 130,000 or more Ukrainians to be butchered for something that means nothing, a Nazi ideology and their, this financial, and the Russians who have decided to take a stand, I think, to try and preempt nuclear war. That, I think, is really why ultimately Putin made the decision to begin the special military operation. And I think that, frankly, they were a little bit surprised at the perfidy of the West. that it comes out that now even the Minsk negotiations were a fraud. So if people don't have a kind of revulsion in your stomach about how unbelievably corrupt, evil, satanic, frankly, this hatred, sadistic is, then listen to some Beethoven, get back in touch with your emotions, because we're going to have to face what we have become, in effect, in order to overcome it and become something better.
So then, but then how does singing actually help us get to that, though? Because, we saw that one of the reasons, I think, why what Kynan and I did worked, or got as big as it did, I should say, is because there was fire and fury, right, to it. Now, why do you think the singing is just as effective, if not more effective?
Well, two things, and one, I hope he won't mind, but the person who started us singing is a professional singer, wonderful tenor voice. And we had a talk afterwards about the issue of romanticism in music. And I wanted a professional singer to start, because every time I do one of these, and you may know, I'm nervous. I get really nervous because you're going so against the grain, everything your mother ever told you not to do. You're about to do it. And I wanted someone who was trained to be able to start solidly. And he told me after, he said, I was much more nervous than I thought I would be. I've never done anything like this. I said to myself, look, you claim to be against the war. What are you doing? And I think it gave him a sense that you can't just sit and cry, because we were talking about some of the horrors of the war. And he said, it really makes me just want to break down. And I said, yeah, but we can't. You have to take that as a strength to resolve to do what you have to do and not just emote. So I think the music, and also when you're doing something together, why did the marchers in the civil rights movement sing? Because it gave them courage, and because it gave them unity. And in many cases, it also recruited the police. It recruited their enemies, because here they were torturing them, not as severely as some people are being tortured today in horrible prison conditions. And they were doing something beautiful and loving. And it has a way of getting through if someone's remotely human, that you can reach them and perhaps change them.
I would say it's best to use every tactic available, the way Jose and his colleagues did, but also, Diane, the way your colleagues did as well. It's a double approach. Yes, there is a boiling rage, and people have a right to be angry. I think there is a powder keg that's going to explode in regards to the rage and fury that many Americans feel towards the political establishment, the two-party system, because it's not Democrats that are being pro-war, it's Republicans too. And I want to say it's Democratic Republican politicians, not voters. Many voters are brainwashed by the two-party system and the neoliberal media, but there is that other perspective of peaceful activism that shows this is humanity and we are better than this. So it needs to be both, a little bit of the rage and of peace. And it needs to wake people up in any which way, because then a person has to ask, well, wait a minute, there's these people on this one side that are furious and angry, and they're bringing up the same points as these peaceful protesters too. Well, what's going on? You're getting two different emotions, but the message is the same. And that is the thing. Consistency has to be key, but also you have to make a moment in time in history to where you are calling out these politicians, and you have to make them feel uncomfortable, be it through anger or through music. And AOC, once again, is being confronted by constituents because, let's face it, AOC has said, if you want to make a change, you got to make these politicians uncomfortable. You got to raise the ruckus. Those are her words that she said on the Jimmy Dore show. Her own words. And if she can't live up to them, if any politician can't live up to them, then they must, of course, step aside. That is what we as citizens, as responsible citizens, must do. We must remind these politicians that they are the public servants and that they work for us specifically. I mean, that's the whole deal of it. It's not the other way around. I don't have to work for AOC or Bernie or Mitch McConnell or Lindsey Graham or any of those jagoffs. I don't have to work for those people. They're supposed to work for us, but they've They successfully circumvented the system. They've managed to buy it out. They managed to corrupt it and open the door for special interest groups.
Yeah. Diane, go ahead. Do you want to respond to that?
Well, I think I would actually distinguish between rage and anger. Sometimes you need a 2x4. You got to whack someone across the head to get their attention so they hear what you have to say, but you don't want to have lost your temper, right? You want to be completely in control. So when you get their attention with that shocking, hey, whatever you're going to say, that you seize the moment to tell them something that they have to know. And absolutely, there are different, it's like a composition or Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, right? Da, 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 da. You have that, and then you have very beautiful parts, and there's a dialogue, but it's very important. And I know from the petitioning we had to undergo, it was very easy to lose your temper. If you lost your temper, you were done, because people who have ill intentions can smell it a mile away. And if you lose your temper, some provocateur is going to get right in your face and you're going to do something that you shouldn't. And I used to I don't know where the expression came from, getting your goats, but I used to say, know where your goats are. Keep your goats. Don't let anyone get your goat.
Beat a goat. Don't lose your goat. There you go.
Right, exactly. Get the 2x4, but keep your goat.
I would just pose this question to both of you then. Then what is the ultimate objective here exactly? I mean, obviously, we're trying to stop nuclear war. But what is it we're doing? Are we trying to get people like AOC to take a stand against the war? Are we trying to get other people who see what we're doing to join us in the cause, to get the politicians to stand against the war? Ultimately, what is and I'm not being cynical, I'm just saying, what is the pragmatic thing we're trying to do that will ultimately give us the change that we want? Because I don't think these people are any good, but can they do good things if they're compelled to do so?
I think so. I see Kit thinking, do you want to say something? Go ahead.
All right. Look, we have a corrupt system, so we have to make do with what we have, regrettably. We have to put the pressure on these politicians, the likes of which that they have not seen since the civil rights movement. So if the end goal is to try and get diplomacy, then yes, there must be interruptions at their meetings. There must be protests in front of their offices, be it in Washington, D.C. or their home state where they represent, or their district office, where they represent. Same goes for the senators too. It has to be consistent. If we're trying to get the message here, we need to relay to these politicians in Washington, D.C. that we're not going anywhere. No matter where you're having your little lobby meetings, whether it's going to be in D.C. or in your district, whether you're going to go out to dinner or have a town hall, there are going to be people of the anti-war movement that are going to be there consistently. And consistency is key. And this is one of my criticism of the activist movement that I saw between 2016 and 2020, is that there was always these big protest movements happening. And in Chicago, I just want to call out the group here and the groups in Chicago when Trump was president. It was always the same. And that is, it would be, oops, I hit the light there. Sorry. We would meet up at Daly Center. People would meet up at Daly Center, march downtown, and go to Trump Tower, and then protest in all the anti-war group, all the pro-immigration groups, anything, women's rights groups would do that. And honestly, they were being led into a cage area. I remember one time filming it, and I'm walking outside the activist group area, and they're being walked directly into a caged area where they could protest in front of Trump Tower that's across the river. And I'm thinking in my head, Malcolm X would never let that happen. Dr. King would not let that happen. And so consistency, it's got to be different. It's got to be always there, and it cannot be controlled or put into a cage. And it has to be far different than what we saw in 2016, from 2016 to 2020. So if we're trying to get a message here, it can't be the politicians are expecting the activists to get in one area, march to another area, and then once they all say their points, they disperse. It's got to be different, but it has to be consistent to where every time the politician walks outside their car and they're going to get dinner or wherever, it's like they're going to be confronted by the anti-war group, be it through peaceful means by singing or by like, hey, senator, House representative, you keep on funding war, but yet your community, your people are being abandoned. There's a lack of health care. There's a lack of public education, lack of investing into our infrastructure. It's got to be consistent. That's the one thing I do hope that this new movement that we are seeing, I do hope we see something far different than what we're used to or what I'm used to seeing. And that's my criticism of what I saw in the 4 years of the Trump presidency, because after a while, I stopped caring. Whatever message it was, I stopped caring. Even if it was a good message, I knew how it would start and end. Daily Center, Trump Tower, in a cage, led by the police like sheep.
I think you're making a really good point, because we have to be creative. Otherwise, exactly what you're saying, people will tune out what's happening. One thing that's really effective is street theater. And I think we don't have enough of that, but we should have street theater. You can have people dressed up like Pompeo, lie, cheat, and steal. We could have a lot of fun with Zelensky if anyone wants to dress up like Zelensky. I don't know who would want to do that. But that's another weapon, right? So we've had the no nuclear war intervention, which is very important. We had the singing, but we could also do humor. I remember I had a very good friend when Newt Gingrich was doing his Contract on America, who wrote a song, the song, It's My Party and I'll Cry If I Want to. Mm-hmm. And he was upset. He changed the words, President Bill won't negotiate. So I sat on the back of the plane. It was some big thing with Bill Clinton. So my friend dressed up in diapers with a white pillow-filling wig and walked into the governor's convention when Newt Gingrich was speaking, wearing nothing but a diaper and a white wig, singing, It's My Party and I'll Cry If I Want to. It had a great effect, and it got covered all over, and Newt Gingrich didn't win the election the next time. So
Okay, Diane, how much time do you have left for us?
About 4 more minutes.
Okay, well then I guess we'll segue into this next question. This could be your last question, because I know Kit and I kind of like disagreed on this because, on the now, right, we do want to lobby the politicians. We do want to get diplomacy. But how do we get lasting change, right? What does lasting change look like? And, Kit said, well, we have a corrupt system, right? Okay, well, then how do you change that exactly? Do you throw everything out? Do you start from scratch? Do you throw away the Constitution? And I want to hear what you have to say, Diane, first, and then Kit, go ahead. And then I think Kit and I can carry from there.
All right, great. Well, 2 things. One, you do have to admit that the financial system is bankrupt. You got to take the power away from these billionaires. So we need a bankruptcy reorganization. We need to reinstate the Glass-Steagall Act, where you separate the investment from the savings banks. They're bankrupt. They are bankrupt, and it's going to either go down in World War III or total chaos and starvation and destruction, or we're going to do it in an orderly way. But more important than that is principle. And as you know, Helga Zepp-LaRouche wrote these 10 principles of new relations among nations, starting with the respect for sovereignty of every nation equally. But the concluding point is that everything has to be discussed from the standpoint that mankind is fundamentally good. And many people aren't convinced of that anymore. It's actually a sticking point. So if you don't believe that human beings are fundamentally good, then you will be a sucker for the next war, because they're going to tell you that the Iraqis came and yanked the babies out of the incubators, or the, Russians or whatever, or the Chinese or this, and you're going to be manipulable to identify one group of human beings or another group of human beings as the enemy, as some evil thing. And your policy has to be informed by a commitment to the goodness of people, and that means the development of people. That means universal education. That means access to health care, a system that is able to deliver care, which we are destroying. It means food, it means energy, it means eradicating poverty. And I think it's unfortunate, but it seems that we are in a situation now where we actually have to have a fight with people on the question of, is man good or not? Is mankind good or not? And if you believe that mankind is good, then you will have the right policy.
Yeah.
All right. I have a different perspective if mankind is good or not. That's the great debate. I look at humans as animals. We are intelligent, self-aware animals, and we do know that, yes, whether some of us like to admit it or not, one day we will die. That is a fundamental truth. I mean, we're not here for forever. One day we will pass away. In regards towards what Jose is talking about, do we tear apart the system? Do we keep some things around? I mean, you have to remember, if you're going to be tearing apart a system, people do want a at least something that they're familiar with, because we are animals. They want the comfort, the security, knowing that, okay, they wake up, there's the routine of whether they're doing their own small business, being entrepreneurs, or working for a company, going to school, taking care of their families. If you do a full-on total teardown, the question is, what do you replace it with, and will it be effective and efficient? So I wouldn't call for an absolute destruction of all systems, because you do need a bureaucracy, whether you like it or not. I mean, humans are like that. We have not evolved to the point of being truly an enlightened, good species. I would like us to get there, but now we'll be walking into the realm of fantasy. So we have to remember that we are creatures, we are animals, we are creatures of habit, and we do have our primal instincts. And that's not going to be kicked out of our system anytime soon, unless we allow the neoliberal system to keep on feeding us their soup and BS through their corporate entities. So it's one thing for me to sit here and offer a solution, but I know that there will be many problems with the things that I do offer. What we have right now representing us, I can tell you for a fact, does not work. Will we need to keep some examples of the bureaucracy? Possibly. We'll have to be going through footnote by footnote. But the thing is, in order for there to be a legitimate approval by the people that there needs to be something new, you need to get the support of all of the people. And this is where I think maybe the stepping stone of Rage Against the War Machine could have, and I say could have the potential of maybe bringing that conversation amongst the American people. And that is, okay, we agreed the military-industrial complex has taken away all of our treasury. The American people are being abandoned. We've been abandoned long before 2020. Let's talk about ending these ridiculous regime change wars and start bailing out the American people. And if that's something libertarians, conservatives, Republicans, Democrats, liberals, socialists, independents, black, white, doesn't matter the color of skin, who you worship, or what generation you're part of, that can get universal approval, then we're talking about getting somewhere. The end game, though, is of the people being consistent. And that means if we really want to have a true democracy representing the people, it's going to have to require the people to no longer be taking it easy and allowing the system to run it by itself. Democracy is eternal vigilance. And that means the people, from birth to death, have to be eternally vigilant on who is representing them, and there must be true accountability, which is something we have not seen in this country for quite some time, if there ever was a point of true accountability amongst our elected officials. I hope that's the answer you're looking for. I would like your feedback. because again, it's one thing to offer a solution. It's another thing to see it implemented. But what we have right now just does not work, because these politicians are doing insider trading and they're all jagoffs. So there.
I'll just add one insight that I have on that, because what you're talking about, when the people used to hold their politicians accountable, I think a lot of that was lost. The soul of the nation, you can say, was lost after the assassinations of JFK, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and Robert F. Kennedy, because ultimately those people represented something that was change. They wanted to get us off the trajectory towards war. They actually wanted to develop the United States, and they wanted to cooperate with nations. But the deep state, the establishment, the military industrial complex, as we say, they didn't allow them to do that. And as a result, people became incredibly pessimistic. People started rioting, people became little, and they ultimately they cared about their own concerns. What am I going to do with my family, right? How am I going to take care of myself? What about my job, And I think that's still evident a lot today. And that's something that we need to get across to people, that no, you absolutely do have power, and until you hold these people accountable, then we're not going to get off this trajectory toward war. But, we actually spoke about this at a conference recently that was sponsored by the Schiller Institute on the assassinations of those specific individuals, and why we actually need to shed light on the assassinations, because a lot of it is still to be questioned to this day, especially with the documents, and again, the JFK documents, again, being postponed. People want to get to the bottom of that, and that might incur some change within some people,
We also have to go ahead, Jose. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, no, because on this, is mankind an animal, or are we some super enlightened species? It's funny because this painting behind me is from this is a zoomed in version of, there's this painting called the School of Athens, and it's all these philosophers from various periods of time are basically sitting around and having these kinds of discussions, is mankind good? Is mankind bad? Are we ultimately just animals, or are we more? And specifically, that's Plato on my left. He's the one pointing up. And then it's also Aristotle, who has his hand like this. I know it's a little hard to tell, but Aristotle's the one in blue. Plato's the one in orange, scarlet, red, whatever color that is. And basically, they both represent this schools of thought, because Plato believed that we were more than just animals, right? Plato believed that there was something more, that there's a reason why we have the ability to question things and ask things, and there's a reason why we can discuss what is the best form of government, and there's also a reason why we can ascribe to ourselves whether or not we're animals or more. Aristotle was of the belief that no, we're just animals who happen to be able to communicate and talk, and one of our best senses is not even our ability to see or hear or talk; it's the ability to feel.
Yeah.
But see, here's the problem though with that, because Aristotle believed that therefore, if we are animals, then we belong to a hierarchy, and that means, and he goes through this in his Politics, in book 1 of Politics, in the 5th paragraph or the 5th section, he says, "Are some people born to be slaves and other rulers?" He says, well, yeah. Because ultimately, because we're animals, some of us belong on the lower system, and some of us naturally belong to be higher. But we should be happy that we're slaves, because we're not like cattle. We're human, so we're a little bit better than just normal slaves and stuff, right? And so this thinking of, well, people are ultimately animals, is what has allowed oligarchies, aristocracies, corrupt fascist governments to say, people can't think for themselves, so they need some order, and that's why we're going to come in and take it over.
When I say that we're animals, I mean, well, for the most part, we do have the instincts of animals. If we have to eat, we have to eat. We have to drink. There's our forces of habit, right?
Right.
But I do not subscribe to the theory that the mindset of people are going to be happy being slaves, and then there's a ruling class. I don't subscribe to it, but unfortunately, history doesn't repeat itself, but it sure does like to rhyme. And I want to bring up a series that I like to watch from time to time. It's called Fall of Civilization Podcast. I think you guys would really like it. It talks about the rise and fall of the empires of ancient antiquity. And, when you look at it, even though they are not as technologically advanced as we are, we have the internet, as we're able to communicate miles apart. We have our cell phones and so much more. Take away the technology and you'll realize that these people from antiquity were shockingly similar to us. There might have been some cultural differences. Of course, there were some vast differences. But for the most part, when you look at when an empire is declining, there's situation and things that are all too familiar with that we are seeing right now play out. And humans do this, especially as we advance. And as a species, as an animal species, what separated us from the other animals, being a higher form, I would say that, yes, humans are a higher form because we are self-aware that we will die. Whether some of us want to admit it or not, we're going to be dead. And then that's it. We're gone. We're off this planet forever. Whatever comes next is the great mystery, and we won't know that until we're dead. But point is, what separates us is not only were we capable of making tools and making nature work for us, but there was another thing that came up as well, and that is working together and compassion. Yes, even in antiquity, humans did have compassion to help each other out. And of course, we were brutal to each other. We're still brutal to each other now, okay? So ancient civilizations and modern civilizations can still be brutal to people, but I would say whether we're inherently good or bad really depends on said individuals. The species as a whole, for humanity, that's the forever question. We are animals that are self-aware, and we are capable of doing great things, but our history has shown that we repeat the same system over and over again. Nation states rise, and then the empire phenomenon, which is a violent thing to rise, will come up. A nation state will be stronger than others, conquer, build an empire. It's at its zenith, its golden period, and then it collapses to where then other nations can repeat the cycle again and again and again. Man's inhumanity to man, but also man's compassion to man. It's the great question of when do we break out of that cycle? Because I think we've reached the end of that game because we have these weapons of mass destruction that are also conveniently pointed at each other. So we can do great things, we can do terrible things, depends on the individual and also what said society will approve of as well.
I think that's an excellent point. And, there's that, that quote by MLK, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it ultimately bends towards justice. But how do we know that that's true, right? How do we actually prove that to ourselves? And you make this great point because General Douglas MacArthur, when, the atomic bomb was first invented and first deployed in Japan, he was shocked by it. A lot of things, this is something a lot of people don't know. A lot of the American generals were opposed to the use of that bomb in Japan. But once it happened, he said that, technology is advancing, science, we're becoming scientifically more advanced as generations come. But there needs to be a spiritual recrudescence, right? We need to learn how to actually live with one another peacefully and to go into an age of mankind, as I think Diane was trying to say with these 10 principles, to prove to ourselves that we are actually good in our nature and that we can actually work with one another. So I think a lot of what we're doing now is we're trying to prove that question to ourselves. We're trying to answer that, and we'll see the more work we do. I don't know what you think about that.
I mean, this is a fascinating conversation because I think this goes back, is man good? Is man bad? Is it individual? Is it a collective? I think ultimately we have to see things in like a giant scope, right? Because how old is this universe? I don't know, trillions of years old, right? And then our Earth is only
I think it's 4.6 or 6 billion years old, our planet. I think 4.6. Yeah. 4.6, I think it's 4.6 billion years old.
Okay, and so if you take what textbooks say, humanity or modern civilization is only about 20 to 10,000 years old. If you take what some archaeologists have been saying, that there have been records of humans since like 2 million years ago, right?
I think we've had about 3 million years of evolution. So the early hominids, 3 million years of evolution. I think about 10,000 to 12,000 years of civilization, give or take. I could be wrong on those numbers, so correct me if I'm wrong on that. But I believe that's the overall scheme of it.
That's also been debated too, because like I read somewhere also it was like 3 million years, and they found like smokestacks and stuff. But anyway, right? So if we go based off like we only really understand the last 20,000 years of human civilization, right? Mm-hmm. 20,000 years compared to 3 million years of humanity is actually pretty tiny. And if you think about it, a lot of like the technological revolution that we've had has only really happened in the last 600 years. Mm-hmm. And so you have this kind of like exponential development and growth of humanity that I think ultimately politics and government or way of life is going to synergize with that too. And we're only like babies compared to what I think humanity could be. You know, all this petty squabbling and stuff that we do, the collapse of empires and stuff. I like to think that in a couple hundred years, maybe 2,000 years from now, they'll figure something out. And I think that's also why it's important that we lay the groundwork now. Because I don't think we can ever have anything that's perfect. Like, this is the perfect government. These are the laws and principles to abide by. You'll never have it. You can't. It's impossible because things change over time. But I think you can have some kind of guiding principle that if you follow that, you can never be wrong. And you take the country. The United States is not even 250 years old yet. It'll be 250 years old in like 2 years, I think.
Yeah.
Right. So 3 years. In 3 years, it'll be 250 years old. You know, China has like a 3,000 year history, right? Russia has like 1,000 year history, right? So the Indians have like 2,000 year history. So the 250 years is nothing. So I like to think we're going to get somewhere. But humanity is advancing. It's evolving when you look at it from the grander scope of things.
It's sorry, go ahead. I'm going to cut you off. No. Well, it's a lesson that we still have yet to learn because we still keep making these same mistakes. There's always China, for example, it's been around for a very long time. They just changed the name depending on what dynasty or said government is ruling over them. I mean, China's still around. China never fell, all right? Just said governing institutions. And by the way, in regards to China and Russia, they would not be the nations they were today were they not forged by steel of the Mongol invasion and Genghis Khan and his fantastic friends. So, I mean, with everything that we've been through as a species, as Homo sapiens sapiens, the species capable of making civilization, we have gone to war with each other. We have destroyed empires and nations. We've built great things and then we've seen it crumble, and it's been an ongoing repeat since we started this whole game. Whether or not we're reaching our end goal though and making something else altogether is the big question mark, because so many people believe that their perspective, so many nations, governments, institutions, religions believe that they are in the right and that their perspective is the correct one. And that's something humanity needs to also, once again, break out of too. We have to start talking to each other through diplomacy, through peace talks, through, the share of this precious planet that we do have, because there's no backup planet. We're stuck here. Mars will not be terraformed anytime soon. Mars cannot be terraformed the way Earth is unless we advance our technology. So we're stuck here with each other, and we all share the same planet. I do hope that we don't destroy ourselves. I fear for the day of World War III. I mean, if that happens, that's the end of us. There's no coming back. Whatever we are capable of, if we do cross that journey, then I think a conversation can come up is not only will it be, is mankind good or bad, but is mankind mortal, or have we become the gods? Because the more we improve our technologies, the more we are capable of being godlike. And when I say godlike, I'm not trying to be sacrilegious, but I'll never forget the look of my grandpa's face when I introduced Skype to him. When my relatives were living in New York City at the time, and he said, "This is like Star Trek." All right. And that's something basic and simple. He's seen a lot. He's 96. So he's seen a lot from his time into where we're at now. But also look at what we've achieved. We've mastered cloning and genetics to some point. We have been improving artificial intelligence, robots, and AI, though I think that that's a Pandora's box that has yet to reveal its true nature. And we're also sending probes and spaceships into outer space. What else can we accomplish if given the time necessary so we don't destroy ourselves? Do we become the gods? Are we the gods? Are we alone? What do we do when we do run into the other, be it another species like us, or hive-minded species, or artificial intelligence out there? I mean, these are big questions to ask. So I think what we could take away from this conversation is, yes, humans are animals. Whether we're good or evil, I mean, depending on the societies and individuals in said societies. I think that's the individual question. Do we identify ourselves good, evil, or just trying to get by in a world that's understandably out of our control?
It's I like that because although some people say it's egotistical to say you're a god, and I also see that in the chat being coming up too. I mean, there was this old school cardinal. His name was Nicholas of Cusa, way back in like the 13th, 14th century. And he had this idea that people are infinite and finite. Like, you and I are going to die, right? Everybody we know is going to die, right? That's just how it happens, and then we get replaced by a new generation. And in some sense, we also never die because, when you have kids, they look like you. They take on your image. They're not you, but they kind of look like you. So your image, in one sense, lives on. But even people who don't have kids also live on in one way because of what they've contributed, or maybe they did something to help somebody, or maybe they built some school that wouldn't exist if it wasn't for them, or maybe some hospital that was built where that kid was born, whatever. Our bodies are finite, but what we leave behind has the ability to be immortal. It has the ability to be infinite. You were referencing like the space probes we put out in space. If you really want to think big, there are more galaxies than there are people. And there's going to be a day, 50,000 years from now, 500,000 years from now, 5 million years from now. I mean, we know this Earth only has like 2 billion years left, and then the sun blows up. And then it's gone.
So, yeah. That's
right.
That's probably the case. Yes.
So we're not meant to stay here either, because there's a reason why we are able to figure out that the sun's going to blow up, right? Like we have the ability to know that. So because we know that, well, here's another question: do we have the ability to control that? We can understand the process of how the sun works, right? We can understand fusion energy. We just made this breakthrough on how we get more energy out of fusion energy than we put in. We understand that the sun is basically like a big ball of just fusion reactions going on and on and on. Will we get to a point where we can actually change the nature of how stars are born? I don't know.
That is, the thing is, when we look at the universe, many of more individuals who are far more smarter than me in regards to the stars and space. All the lights, all the stars are dying. The energy will disappear, and one day the whole universe will be just pure and utter darkness because the energy will be gone. It'll all be.
I've heard that.
Yeah. It's all going to be the consistency and same. Whether or not we can change that, well, that is something altogether. Whether man can cross that threshold. Another thing too is if we ever get to the point of galactic expansion, if we're able to leave our planet safely and establish a foothold on another solar system or in another galaxy. I don't know what that looks like, but if we're capable of, there is another frightening thing to take into account. Two frightening things. Number one, we're alone, and that's it. It's just us. We are the anathema, the anomaly in the universe. We are the universe's eyes and ears, and it being self-aware, because we are made out of stardust and particles, as we've been told before by brighter minds. We are that, or we do run into life, and there's many ways we run into it. It hasn't evolved to our point, or they may not want to talk to us because they might be afraid of us. Because remember, we are an invasive species too. That would be, really concerning. Like, how do we react to the other? And I'm not just talking about with the human, how we have viewed other nations or cultures, because we would always say, well, they are the others. How do we truly react to the other? Do we embrace it, or do we also take a step back because we don't know what they want? Again, it's the big question of where we go as a species. But I think the first step before we even go into the great beyond is fixing our problems here at home amongst each other so that we could build that better future.
Oh, I see things a little differently. I think that by going out, you do fix your problems at home. You know, the Apollo space program, for every dollar we put in, we got $7 back. And because of the Apollo space program, that's why we have stuff like pacemakers, MRI machines, you know.
Wait, to be clear, I'm all for space exploration. I want to see more of it. But I mean, in regards for us as a species to come to terms of what we can do, because it's one thing to be given power of space travel and all the technologies that come from it, all the beneficial technologies, even the evil technology too. Let's be clear on that. We also have to grow ourselves as well, and we have to communicate with each other here on this planet, because not all of us are going to be leaving the planet anytime soon. But as we improve our technology, we also have to improve ourselves. We are Homo sapiens sapiens, and at least according to our species name, we are the wise man. Let's be wise and talk to each other and build communities with each other before anything else, because if we can't be improved upon ourselves in our own way, where we're not being dictated by oligarchs or tyrants or dictators or tycoons, we have to be individually, all of us, our own sovereign and our again, contributors to what could potentially be a better world. At least that's my hope.
Well, there was this Russian-Ukrainian scientist named Vladimir Vernadsky. And his belief was that because we are made of the universe, we are stardust, we are this and we're that, we're made up of all these processes. We, human beings, are an expression of the universe thinking of itself. That we are the universe thinking about itself. And with that comes the ability to understand. You know what I mean? Right? Because this isn't like whether you want to express it biblically, right? Some people like to point to the first of Genesis, right? You know, that you have domain of this earth, the world, right? But if Vernadsky is right, that we are an expression of the universe thinking about itself, then what are the implications of that? And does that come with responsibilities? Like, you know?
It does, but then another thing too that needs to be brought up, if we are the universe thinking of itself, remember, there was a planet Earth that was very alien, very foreign, and hostile before humanity ever left the trees to become what we are. Because if we look back to the prehistory of this planet, it was extremely brutal, unforgiving, primal, to where only the strongest survived. I mean, if we look at, again, the ecosystems in the Paleozoic, to the best of our knowledge of what they look like, of the Paleozoic, Cenozoic, and Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic eras before humanity, I mean, it was always survival of the fittest, where you had your herbivores and you had your carnivores. You had the weak and the strong. So the universe, obviously, in theory, if we want to talk about this, was running with that method of survival of the fittest. And then comes in humans and how we're able to shape nature, work together, go to war against each other, build things, and so much more. We added something else, but the basic primal instinct is also still there. So it does call into question then, what is the universe then really thinking about then? What is it really wanting to say to us? That we're here, we live, we die. Sometimes you make it, sometimes you don't.
Well, that begs the question, because we're talking about how human beings have progressed so much over our ancestors. What is it that actually distinguishes us? We are animals, right? But we've progressed so far. right? Obviously, our population, what is it, like 8 billion? And you compare that to like other animal populations. You can't even compare them, right? They're so small. So how is it that we're able to do what we're able to do, whereas animals, other animals can't do that? What makes us different? Is it something biological? Is it a mental? What is it?
Well, I mean, at least according to some of the fossil records for humanity, I mean, remember, there was at one point we were not alone in the universe because there were other subspecies of humans. And I think when Homo sapiens sapiens was at its rise, there were only two other species, Homo sapien neanderthalis and then Homo sapien habitus, which is that hobbit humanoid that they found in the islands in the South Pacific, which is, again, a fascinating study altogether. What I think separated, first of all, humans or hominids from the other animals is, one, our ability to make tools, two, shape our environment with said use of tools, us able to communicate, and with each variation of the hominid species, community and working together was always key. Now, obviously, many of those, all of them are now gone, save for us. So what separated Homo sapiens sapiens from our competition is we're just better at it. We're better at tool use. We gave up, bone density and strength, because let's face it, the only close relatives we do have are chimpanzees and the other great apes. We don't have their great strength. We don't have their brutality, but we do have the ability of making powerful tools, communities, controlling technology, and using our intelligence. It's just we whether people want to admit it or not, we were better. We are better. And nature selected us in that way because we were able to survive nature and all of its challenges. I mean, our evolution record says it for itself, and our civilizations, whether they rose and fall or they rise and fall, we are still here. Now, that doesn't mean we're guaranteed a full life or that we're going to make it to the stars, but we've shown through our ability to fight and survive, we were the strongest and we were the most fittest. Now, that doesn't make us good. We're just good at it.
Coming up on time, but you know what, Kit? Actually, can I ask you to stay on like 5-10 more minutes?
I actually do have to do some work on the side for another studio project that I have to do, and I'm so sorry about that. But
no problem. Then we'll react to it, because I forgot there was one more clip we needed to show from the thing, but I guess we'll react to it individually. I want to thank you for coming on, Kit.
No problem.
This was a great discussion.
Yeah, to be continued. Let's have another one.
To be continued. Yeah. We'll talk more about Plato and Aristotle. And Kit, thanks.
Both mind you do bring up very good points, because I'm not going to say, well, Aristotle or anyone else is correct. I mean, there's different perspectives and points of view. So, as always, I had a great conversation with you guys. You guys were awesome.
Square next time. That's what we'll do. You don't know what that means yet, but we'll make you do it next time.
Okay. All right.
Good. All right. Sounds good, Kit. Thanks for coming.
A lot. Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, I'll be heading on out. Take care, gentlemen, and keep speaking truth to power. Don't back down. Keep at it. Be consistent. And I like what you guys are doing. And don't let anyone tell you not to do this. Just keep on being aggressive. Don't hold back, and you're gonna master it. Take care, gentlemen.
Thank you.
It means a lot.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a great.
That was unexpected. But
pretty good. Yeah.
Turned out very well. I think.
Hold on. Gotta fix the. Oh wow! Why are we frozen like that?
Yeah. Why are we?
I know why. Because. That's why. Oh man, we have to fix that. Hold on. I think I can do it. I just have to do this, and then I have to do this. No. It's so weird.
Are we frozen on stream?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just our video.
Check the stream.
Oh boy, I'm gonna have to go back retroactively and cut this. Or yeah, we are frozen on stream. Oh man,
no, that's not good.
No, but our audio is still good.
Yeah.
But okay, it's not a bad pose.
Well, I mean, we could show the video, and I guess we could just end it off there.
You know what? Yeah. Okay. So let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what
Sorry about that.
people are seeing. I guess people are seeing the thumbnail now. Hopefully, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Right. So people can only hear us right now, and then they just see this frame of the video. This is a Lucy, who was actually part of the Biden intervention too.
You might want to tell people about that.
Yeah, right. So we did an intervention on Biden back in November, was it? Yeah. Yeah. Right. It was like a few days before the election, and so she came out and she intervened against. Joe Biden with us. So it was a lot of fun. She did a great job. And here she is standing up. Now, this is in Spanish. And basically what she's saying is there hasn't been a new immigration law in the last 40 years. And then she's saying $100 billion for Ukraine is crazy. What are these Democrats actually doing? It's a short clip. It's only about a minute long. I'm going to play this because I promised Lucy I would. I haven't translated it yet, but we will. And so we're
after we're translating.
We're putting this up.
Una ley de migración hace 40 años. No, necesito hablar, necesito escucharme. Yo vine para hacer una pregunta. Sí, por favor, sí. Hace 40 años que no hay una ley de amnistía en este país. Okay? Todavía no hay una ley de amnistía en este país. El Partido Demócrata mandó $100 billones a nazis en Ucrania y esta señora votó para eso. En este país necesitamos un tercer partido al estilo de AMLO en México y Petro en Colombia y Boric en Chile. El Partido Demócrata no está haciendo nada por nosotros. Nosotros.
So how's this any different than the other guys? I don't see any difference.
El Partido Demócrata no hace nada por nosotros. Yo lo siento. No, señora, no. Estamos registrando nuestra tierra. Yo voy a estar afuera registrando a la gente independiente. De acuerdo. Gracias, señora. Gracias.
The Democratic Party is not doing anything for us and hasn't done anything for us for the last 40 years. That was the crux of her argument. I will be posting this video to Twitter later, hopefully subtitled with the English translations. And with that, y'all, we are signing out. Thank you for tuning in. This was a lot of fun. That's right. Lucy is amazing, Miguel. Completely agree. And so with that, take care, y'all.
Take care.